I'll call the November 6th, 2017 City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
John Hawkins.
Here.
Matt McKinney. Here. Brian Miller.
Here.
Jim Talbot.
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here.
Call for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Section A, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in cases of emergency, the City Council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask the city staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on an agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have anything? Oh,
I was just going to ask the council, I happened to read the October 1st Waterloo Cedar Falls Carrier, and the town of Traer has a wind turbine, and I just was going to ask the city council here if you have any future plans to have a wind turbine or solar power for the city.
I haven't at this
Why are they
stage.
looking at me? I guess we don't have any plans
No.
per se, but we're always open-minded to it. You know, as you know, we're a municipal utility, so we buy and sell power. So I think it'd be fiscally or financially responsible for us to produce power at a lower rate if we could, but we are fortunate to buy power at a very low rate. So it kind of depends what makes sense, but yeah, I think we're always open-minded to renewable energy and different sources.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
I got so Ace Community Center was willing to let us continue the farmers market over the holiday season, so we're going to continue to have farmers market the first and third Saturday of each month for the next 2 months, and just see how it goes. So just kind of extending farmers market.
Okay. I wanted to thank all the participants in the Warm Hearts, Warm Homes program on Saturday. A fair few of us went out and did a number of houses. So there was a lot of people, so we didn't have much work to do. So I think next year they're going to maybe get some more houses for us, keep us busier. Also remind everybody that Veterans Day on Saturday, and we have down at the at Stratford, they've got their opening of their Freedom Rock at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We also have on the Sunday, it'll be open house at Wilson Brewer Park, because they'll be closing there, so that's open on Sunday for the veterans. And we have citywide leaf pickup, and we need volunteers for that, and that's on November 14 at 7 a.m. What else we got? That's it, I think.
One other thing, we did, John and I went out to Hamilton County Veterans Affairs, and we were there the last day of the month to get a picture taken. And we had written it up and had wordsmithed a very beautiful document for us. And it's 11 days, the first 11 days of November for veterans recognition within the city and the county. And so that was kind of a follow-on to what they had at the RSVP, the Hamilton County Veterans Affairs. And they service a lot of people providing help, and it's kind of a segue to get into Des Moines or other VA for assistance and things like that. So we had a picture in the paper, and then I've got the proclamation on my council Facebook, and has it on the, which one?
Website.
City website. You ought to read it, a lot of history in there. This was the 100th anniversary of us going into World War I on the American side. And one thing I think I was kind of shocked when John and I were talking about this several weeks ago. You know, on the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month, you know, when I was young, you know, we had Armistice Day, everybody would stop and observe and face to the east. And John, they did the same thing in Australia. And I guess I just didn't quite think of it that way. So be aware of that. It's talking about 11 days of veterans awareness.
remind everybody to go out and vote tomorrow too, it's, if you will. It's your right to go, and it's a nice right to have, I know. I wasn't born with it. Anyway, anyone else have anything? Item B on is minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. We have minutes of October 16, October 30th and 30th Town Hall. We also have a resolution on payroll for period ending October 14 and paid on October 20. We also have a second resolution on payroll for period ending 28th and paid on November 3rd, and a resolution on bills and the funds list. How would you like to?
I move to approve B 1, 2, and 3, and 4 collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. C, general agenda. First on our list is a motion to accept Lindy Henderson's resignation from the Civil Service Commission. Sorry to lose you, Lindsay, but we're glad to have you here instead.
Man, no one's saying anything. I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 2 is a motion on appointment to the Youth Advisory Commission for the unexpired term ending June 1st of 2018. Who's that?
Nominate Anastasia Vestweber.
Okay.
A second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Oh,
Anastasia is actually here, so congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
We had 3 great applicants, so you should be very honored to be chosen, and I encourage the other 2 applicants to apply in the future.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good applicants on the whole board, so yeah, a lot of exciting stuff coming for that. So. Okay, item 3 is a second reading on a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa, 1996, by adding paragraphs 9 and 10 to Chapter 65, Section 03, adding a 4-way stop on Fairmeadow Drive and Rodland Road, and a 4-way stop of Fairmeadow Drive and Cayman Drive. You want to brush on that, Dan?
Sure. This would be the ordinance, the second reading of the ordinance that would establish the 2 4-way stop signs, one at Fairmeadow and Rodland Road and the other one at Fairmeadow and Cayman. That came about after the completion of the construction that extended Fairmeadow clear out to Beach Street. Originally, the city was waiting on the development to move forward and wait to do a traffic study, but after the initial opening and a couple requests from residents in that area, the traffic committee reviewed those 2 intersections after placing 2 temporary stop signs in there and recommended to leave the stop signs in place. The council previously approved the first reading. This will be the second reading of that ordinance.
I feel the stop signs have been doing their purpose. The neighborhood traffic is much more tame than I think anticipated by the residents in that area. Now that Fairmeadow goes all the way to Beach, I've heard very little complaints on the placement. And can we waive the 3rd reading if it passes the 2nd today?
It's up to you guys, but yeah, you can.
Well, I'll move to approve the 2nd reading.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I move to waive the 3rd reading.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I move to pass and adopt.
Second.
And you all right over there?
Hang on. Yeah. Brian said.
Second.
All those in favour say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. The stop signs are permanent. Item 4.
One thing I'd like to note, though, if I may, last Tuesday, I believe, when we were out at the place, I went east or west on that, and it looked like a vehicle had turned to the north on the north lane, just when it goes down to Beach, and gone across the curb and had a nice rut in there. So I don't know if anybody had seen that. I drive every day, so.
Are you talking the curb on the boulevard or the curb?
No,
on
where
Beach?
the road intersects with Beach.
Oh, so they were coming.
They evidently were
East, I
going
got you.
west.
Yep, I got you.
And they turned north and they went across the curb, so I don't know, I mean, I'm assuming it had to be more than a straight truck, it had to probably have a
That's
trailer
right.
on it,
There's been some trailers going in and out
yeah.
for the street.
No, I'm just
Some of
saying,
the guys have
across
been
the
going the
curb,
wrong
and
way
that's
when they've been coming out.
kind of the issue we've got at the other end of Fairmeadow too, when they come out of the
Yeah.
McDonald's too.
Well, we've got an issue there, we realise with our
Yeah.
traffic islands, yeah.
While we're kind of on the topic, at least it's somewhat related, I see the trail has been barricaded off. Are those cement barricades the permanent barricades? Okay.
Yes, you are.
And is it gonna stay open on the north side of the pedestrian bridge? Like the asphalt kind of jogs over onto the Beach Street pavement, and I just didn't know if that's like a crossing or if it's gonna be barricaded as well.
I don't recall what we had planned for that. We can kind of bring that up at the next council meeting since we're kind of going off the agenda now.
Sure. No, again, not to put you on the spot, but again, I'm just curious. I just didn't know if that was gonna be barricaded as well, since there was some safety concerns brought about the possibility of someone meandering onto Beach Street off that trail. I just noticed that was open and the asphalt actually looks like it leads you to Beach Street, so. Something to be aware of.
Okay. Item 4 is the first reading of proposed ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the City of Webster City 1996 by modifying section 63.13 to chapter 63 pertaining to speed regulations. Daniel?
I believe this was to be an ordinance to correct the wordage error on the previously adopted speed limits that were established for Beach Street.
Yeah.
Ken caught that after the council had already passed that, so we need just to correct that error.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 5 is a resolution establishing a maintenance of East 2nd Street and Superior Street sidewalks on city right-of-way.
This agenda item, when the East 2nd Street sidewalk project was completed as well as the Superior Street, I think council had some discussion, whether it was in the town hall meeting or also in the council meetings, when we moved forward with that project about maintenance of those sidewalks. I believe it was council's intent or desire for the city to maintain those stretches of the sidewalks, being that the city was entertaining this project. And a lot of these portions of the sidewalks are far enough away from people's properties that would make it unrealistic, or the expectations unrealistic for them to maintain it, particularly on Superior Street, where you have the driveway for someone's home clear on the opposite side, not on Superior Street, which made it difficult for them to be able to maintain that. So we wanted to memorialize that in the form of resolutions for future staff and future councils to understand that.
Okay, call for a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 6 is a resolution authorising the mayor and the city clerk to enter into a professional services amendment NR01 to licence agreement NR391, amendment number 1, with Computer Information Systems Incorporated in connection with records management software for the police department. Bring Keith up here.
Yeah, I think so. Sitting there kind of bored
We
in the back.
thought we'd bring you up tonight. You kept hiding out down there.
The software that was approved previously is working well. One issue we came across was the state software does not interface with our software. So this modification would allow that to happen. What they did was they had included a 911 interface in the software we purchased that we don't use. So they swapped that out for the interface for the state software. So it doesn't cost us anything. It actually saved substantial money because they charged $15,000 for the state interface,
Oh, okay.
and we're getting it even up.
We always like it when we're not spending anything. We're saving. So, yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
So your department's completely up to speed. I think you told me last time you'd gotten your cameras. And those will interface with all the computer systems you have,
The car cameras and body cameras work together.
and they work with everything.
Everything's synced together.
Okay, good.
Is there some training for the staff then that needs to take place, or that already has taken place?
It's already taken place.
I noticed some of the officers that were at the kickball game at the high school we're at a few weeks ago were wearing the body cams. I'd be interested to see that footage.
Yes.
Preferably not when I'm getting tagged out.
Right.
That's self-incrimination, you gotta realize that.
Move to approve?
Thank you, Chief.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 7 is a resolution. Hang on, I might go to the first of our public hearings. Item 17 on the agenda is a 5:45 PM public hearing on proposed plans and specifications, proposed form of contract and estimate of costs for the Union Street Hot Mix Asphalt Overlay Project. I will open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections.
Are there any oral objections? I will close the hearing. Dale, you or Ken?
I guess I can kind of start it. If you have any questions for Ken, this project is for doing asphalt overlay of Union Street, essentially from the city's swimming pool clear out to 2nd Street, so that entire length will be overlaid with asphalt. We previously discussed the condition of the road, and while that's not the only road in town, that's the one we're focusing on this project for now. It will entail, I believe it was a 2-inch overlay of asphalt that's going to go out. Project to be completed next year. If you have any specific questions in mind that Ken and I can answer on that.
So we only received, even though we went out for multiple bids, we only received one. Does that seem like a fair amount?
Yeah, and as you see, there's another project down the road that's we only received one bid. I think in terms of asphalt hot mixes or contractors, there's not a whole lot here regionally. You have the one out of Fort Dodge, you have another one in Des Moines. There's obviously a number of projects throughout the state that are being undertaken, and I don't know if part of the fact is that we're just competing with a couple other projects that are in the works, that these contractors are so tied up that they're not choosing not to bid for this stuff, or whether there's other things going on regionally that you just don't have the contractors available that want to bid.
Be good to note that the estimate came in, or the bid came in $40,000 lower than the engineer's estimate. So.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
I'll call for a resolution finally approving and confirming plans, specifications and form of contract and estimate of costs for the Union Street Hot Mix Asphalt Overlay Project.
Sounds good.
So it was,
I'll still move to approve.
it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. I call for a resolution awarding contract for the Union Street Hot Mix Asphalt Overlay Project to Fort Dodge Asphalt Company, Fort Dodge, Iowa, in the amount of $150,983.25.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Might just go on and do the 550. I think, or should I rush through one of the other ones? Item 7 is a resolution authorising enter into agreements with OPG3 Incorporated of Eagan, Minnesota for a laserfish data management system with scanner for City Hall and the Police Department's records.
This system and the scanner equipment that comes with it, we're trying to move in a direction of trying to save and process all of our, essentially all of our paperwork, all of our files. Typically, we just print off and stick in a file and then put in a box downstairs in the basement. So the system entails a software package that can manage the different files, that would enable us to be able to scan the documents, turn them into readable text or readable files, so that we can do keyword searches and readily look up contracts or ordinances or whatever document we produce, and be able to save digitally, as opposed to all the paper hard copies downstairs or around the offices that we have. And it's just one step in trying to move us into, I guess, the modern office environment that reduces paperwork and has a better management system for filing and records purposes.
Moving into the 21st century. Yeah.
Can the records be stored off-site, so that in a fire you have no loss of records?
I believe right now we are planning to have it as on a server. I think, if I remember correctly, we have a method of backing up the servers with, I believe we still do it at Fuller Hall, if I'm not mistaken. We looked at the cloud system, and we're just still trying to look through all of our systems to see what would be the best fit. The cost is a big part of cloud storage and how much we want to save, both between the offices here as well as on the police department side, and how much they store and save. And so for right now, the locally owned and controlled hardware is the more cheaper solution for us to look at, as opposed to a cloud system. But in the future, we're probably going to have to look at that, just because that's where things are headed.
So the documents are backed up, and then that data, whatever it is, tape or whatever, is kept at Fuller Hall, so it's two separate
Yeah,
locations.
I believe there's an upload that occurs between the two. So.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's all, you know.
One question I had is I saw in the quote there's a few line items that said billed annually. Will that be ongoing cost?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Call for a motion.
So move.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 18 on the agenda at 5:50 PM, public hearing on proposed amendment to the residential urban renewal area C, Burrow Creek Estates. I will open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections.
Are there any oral objections? I'll close the hearing. Daniel, or I'll bring Carla up. Let's get Carla up here.
Okay.
She's hiding out the back row too.
Okay,
Evening, Carla.
good evening. This sounds loud. This item reflects the urban renewal area that we had since 1994 for the Burrow Creek Estates. We developed 5 residential urban renewals in '94, and in the last 5 or 6 years, the legislature has insisted that we amend each plan according to each project that we take in that plan. So this, for instance, is this Area C, which is Burrow Creek Estates, and we all know that we are doing a housing subdivision out there, and we have to amend then the existing plan that's already in place to include specifics. And this specific plan is to do a subdivision, naming it the Burrow Creek Estates Housing Subdivision Infrastructure, phases 5 and 6. And that the city will undertake and complete the construction of street, water, sanitary sewer system, curb, gutter, and storm sewer improvements. And that setting out the fact that this addition of new housing in the city will enhance the quality of life, resulting in commercial and residential growth. Also, being as we're taking on another project, we had to call a meeting with the school and the county to let them know that their taxes are going to be withheld for another duration of time, that this project is in the urban renewal plan. And that was held in October 19th, and Doug Bailey and Dan Campadilla came along with Mike Sherwood. And none of them had any problems at all with the fact of what we were doing, so that was good to hear. They were willing to give up their taxes for development that will basically affect them also. So, this is for the approval of the resolution amending the original plan to include the establishment of Brewer Creek 5th and 6th edition.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Carl?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Very good.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, a call for a resolution to approve urban renewal plan amendment for the residential urban renewal area C, Brewer Creek Estates.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 19 on the agenda at 5:55 again, public hearing on the continuation of the citywide urban revitalisation plan for residential tax abatement. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections? Are there any oral objections? I'll close the hearing. Carla, did you?
Okay, this program was established back in 1993 when private enterprise was not willing to step up to the plate and take a risk in creating subdivisions. And that's when we took on Brewer Creek 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th editions. And then we also had a housing committee that established a tax abatement program for the city. And we decided that what we needed was some incentive to fill the infill lots within the city. Such as houses that were being torn down, leaving a vacant lot, or just vacant lots that haven't been sold yet in old subdivisions. The rules that were put in place were that for an infill lot to qualify for tax abatement, they had to be 50 feet within water, 50 feet within sewer, and on an existing public street. Therefore, any of the new subdivisions did not qualify. We've had 135 new dwellings that have been put up since then. They get 100% tax abatement on the improvement, nothing on the lot. We are allowed by state code to extend this every 3 years. And if we start changing the narrative in it, then we have to go by the new state code, which says that tax abatement can only be on the first $75,000 of an improvement. So we're trying to get by as long as we can with what we're doing. I'm gonna be talking to John Danos. He seems to think we've had a good thing for too long and we need to get up to state code, but we're not doing anything wrong, so we might as well just keep our incentive, our plan the way it is for now, and keep it at the 3-year 100%. Otherwise, like I said, we go back to the first $75,000 is all that's allowed to be abated.
So what does state code allow for length of time, the new state code? We do 3 years now. What does it allow?
If we went to the new rules, it would be on a sliding scale. And I think the starting is at like 10% and then it, for X number of years, and then it goes up to 15, or it's a sliding scale for so many years. And I think it's 5 or 10, depending on the rules that we choose to follow. So it would only minimize from 75,000 down. And right now, it's proved to work with 135 new houses. It seems impossible. I've got a list of them all though, but it's a big number, but there were a lot of infill lots, and now we're tearing down more. That's our mission, is to clean up the neighborhoods and get more housing up if the lots are compatible in width and dimension, but it's a good program, it's proved successful, so I guess I would ask that you approve it for another 3 years.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Call for a resolution adopting the extension of the herbal revitalisation plan for residential tax abatement.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 20 on the agenda at 6 p.m, public hearing on the proposed sale of lots in Brewer Creek Estates 5th and 6th editions for Webster City, Iowa. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections.
Are there any oral objections? I'll close the hearing. Did you want Carol to talk on this one too?
She looks anxious.
Well, I'm on a roll.
Since you
You've already had the discussion about the prices on the lots, and as far as I know, there hasn't been any changes. So this public hearing simply will establish the hearing that needs to be held for the sale of each lot. Only this time, I'm asking that we have the hearing on all 53 lots, so I don't have to come back 53 times to have a public hearing on each lot that I sell. It worked great for us in first, second, third, and fourth editions, and I guess I would say that it's very, it's a lot more user-friendly if we don't have to waste the time of setting and holding public hearings when someone wants to buy a lot.
Anyone have any questions?
No, I agree. I mean, we've discussed at decent length the lot prices and consulted with experts and real estate and the banks. I think we're at a good spot to move forward with this. If we pass this tonight, would they be available for sale tomorrow? Or is there still
Soon
more
as advertised,
red tape?
isn't it? Soon as it's been advertised.
It will be posted, but bring it on, I'll take them.
And you've seen quite a bit of interest in some of them as well, like people lining up metaphorically.
Let's say I have probably given out, even to realtors in Fort Dodge, the draft price list and sizes of the lots, probably almost a dozen times.
No, good, that's exciting, and I hope those come to fruition. I'm comfortable with the prices.
Call for a resolution providing for sale of lots in Brewer Creek Estates 5th and 6th editions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We've got lots for sale. All right. Item 8 is a motion on the tree grinding services at the tree brush drop-off site. Daniel, you want to?
Sure. On this one, this is, for, as many of you are aware, our tree drop-off site out by the street department, between the street department and the wastewater plants. Many years ago, as outlined in the memo, the city did away and banned open burning or leaf burning, and started to provide the service of people being able to drop off their tree waste. And the city has spent every year money set aside for getting a processor to come in and be able to process those tree trunks into smaller mulch-like material. As you see on the memo, that price has increased. In 2003, we started off at $5,900. We're up to $26,000 last year. The bid received this year is for $24,000. Obviously, it's a service the city provides. It's a service that keeps growing over time, but one of the options, we can either look at changing the policy with open burning, or also look at changing or look at ways to increase some revenues to offset the cost. But the tree grinding, for better or worse, is something we have to live with for now, while we do have that tree waste out there.
Looking at that history, looks like we've gone to the same company the last 3 years, and it was also the only bidder for the 2017 year. Have they given you any insight to why that increase in the service? Is it due to our amount, or is it due to just
I believe last year's was, because of the amount, you see we skipped 2015. And so and then you see it in 2011. I'm not sure what that was for. You have to see it twice, amount for 17 and amount for
Yeah,
18.
unfortunately, there aren't too many vendors out there that will do that, and Chamnus was the other one that's competing, and theirs broke down, and a new machine is $800,000 to $1 million. So I think that's part of what is and I did internet, online Google searches and everything else, and I sent it out to 5 in the area. I think 4 from Iowa and 1 from Missouri maybe, but there aren't many people that have the true grinders out there.
Sure, so they're just kind of taking advantage of the limited
Somewhat, yeah.
market, sure. Which is understandable. Are they using the same technology they used the last few years? Same grinders, same everything?
It's pretty much the same thing.
Because I know there's been some complaints of the city mulch may have been kind of underutilized by some of the people of Webster City because they feel like it's kind of, I don't know, not pure, if you will, or some.
Right, it's a lot different than the bags you buy at one of the stores. It's not sterilized, you know, as if we would try to sell it, we would have to go by those standards where every once in a while there'll be some poison ivy and some of them, you know, and stuff like that. And so, but it is nice mulch. It's free for people that need a lot of mulch, or like even residents to put some mulch down and top dress it with some store-bought mulch too.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, Ken. I love that we provide that as a service to our community. Again, I just didn't know if there's different technologies, different. We pay a little more to get a little more of a, I guess maybe filtered product. But just curious.
Yeah.
We have been filtering it, didn't we? Because I think the last couple of years we've actually get it cleaner or something than we used to.
That was with the compost.
Was it? Okay.
The compost is for the most part the leaves and grass clippings that are mixed together, and those are the huge rows too. You see on that, it looks from a distance it looks like black dirt, but it's really compost.
Yeah.
And those we have sifted.
That's a lot cleaner now than it used to be,
Right.
isn't it? Yeah.
Right.
Can you touch on just whether or not the amount that we do every year has changed, if it's gone up or if it's been roughly the same?
It's gone up, especially with the emerald ash borer in Iowa. We've taken a very assertive, some might think aggressive approach on that in terms of the ash trees that we currently have in the right-of-ways in the parks. I think this is coming up on the last year that we'll have that, and that most of those, there's still a lot of them in the wooded areas as well as private property owners, and right now I think at least most of the counties that we're surrounded by have made that designation of being affected by that. We haven't seen it in Hamilton County yet, but it'll be similar to the way Dutch elm disease was so many years ago, that it'll have a pretty tough impact on the community.
So we may actually see a reduction if we don't get big storms.
I would hope so, yeah, but it all depends on the
Next year we may
storms.
get a reduction, yeah.
If we ever talked about, I noticed one of your comments on here is the recycling fee of it. Has that ever been discussed by past councils?
I don't think so.
Well, we have somewhat of a recycling fee in our services. You just talked about adding to it. Yeah. For just the mulch service or the tree dump service.
For the both of
Yeah.
them, probably, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember what it cost this past year to have the screener come in. You're obviously talking 26,000 last year, 24 this year. The screener, I imagine, I want to say it was in the teens when we had that come in.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I couldn't remember either, but you're well over 30,000, maybe pushing 40 or 50 between the tree grinding as well as the compost screening.
Again, I feel it's a great service we have. I have family members in other communities that rely on a curbside pickup type service with brush and whatnot, or the old style of burning, which I'm happy we don't have anymore. So I would move to stick with what we've done in the previous years and award the contract.
I would just say one last comment. I think earlier this year I did look or research a little bit in terms of other avenues to dispose of this. And there are a couple of options, but I think some of them can be more expensive due to transportation cost, or even just the contractors or the sources that they use are pickier. One of them being using wood as biomass for power generation. I think University of Iowa has a new facility that just came online, and they're always looking for biomass material that they can burn as part of their process. Even Ames uses some of them for their power plant down there, but
Like a gasification process.
yeah. Yeah, but the cost of transportation as well as the purity of the material they receive, they tend to be a little pickier at that. And so I don't know how realistic it would be to look at an avenue like that.
No, and I appreciate you, Daniel, looking at different options for us to keep us, I guess, relevant, you know, and especially, you know, gasification processes and biomass stuff. That'd be great. You know, I love it. But I also really enjoy the ability to go pick up a truckload of mulch and keep the weeds down around my trees when needed. So, I say we stick to what we're doing. But again, I'm open to other comments.
Okay.
I got one question or maybe a suggestion.
Yeah, Marty, come on. Yep.
On the purpose wise, like when the city cuts the trees down, we cut down hardwoods. Is there a place that we could dump them and make a pile that does not get touched? 'Cause right now, we dump the pile down there at the waste place, which they take and push it up into the pile. And I know there is people that have stopped going down there to cut wood, because as you do push it across the dirt, it embeds it into the wood and bark and stuff, and people don't want to ruin their bars and chains. I mean, that might be an option.
Sure. And maybe keep the mulch a little cleaner too. Again, like if you keep like just
I don't
true
know.
wood separate, then
When you grind it, like the dirt and stuff falls out of it, because they got carbide teeth in their grinders. But just the people that want to cut it for burning,
Fire.
for heating, firewood.
For
Yeah,
firewood.
we can't have people cutting firewood down there. Right?
they do.
We do already. We
Yeah,
actually,
we do
we
already.
do. It is
I know
almost
that.
a permit in essence that people fill out a form and they're allowed to.
So there's a process.
Yeah, there is a
It's not
process.
some guy with a chainsaw.
And we also have within the parks and other areas, we have like at Kendall Park, we need to get them topped by the line department, but we have different people that are on a waiting list to cut them up into logs for firewood. So we try to, trees like that, try to prevent them from being taken down there to what Marty says. And I know in the past, I know they've tried to get some of the nicer logs away from the big pile. Because usually there's typical a pile of logs and then a pile of brush. And then sometimes the pile of logs it's almost dangerous to try to get into that pile to cut some off. But I know in the past, the street department has had some laying off to the side too.
Okay. Probably a good idea, yeah. The more they cut up, the less we gotta grind, so. All right. We have a
I
motion?
have a motion, yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
We need a second.
A second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 9 is a resolution authorising the mayor and the city clerk to enter into an agreement with Millard's Lane Drainage Project, for the Millard Lane Drainage Project with Tile Pros Incorporated of Webster City, Iowa. Daniel?
This is we have some drainage issues on Millard's Lane, which for many people it's just it's the road just south of the water tower of Highway 20. It then connects onto Highway 17, and so we've looked at addressing some of those drainage issues to be able to better maintain and prevent further damage to the road. We went out for bids. We only have one bid from Tile Pros to be able to complete that work. This would be on the south end, I believe, that we're looking to do most of the work on that road. So.
Seems to be a pattern this week. We got 4 single bids, wasn't it?
4 or 5, yeah.
The worst they got for me.
Oh. Okay, call for a motion?
I have a question, though. I
Yeah.
mean, Tile Pros is owned by, or partly owned by a city employee. Do we get into conflict of interest by awarding a contract to a city employee's business?
I mean, it went out for bid, so there was more than, I mean, anybody else could have bid on it, so you would get into some of an issue if you accepted like a higher bid because it was a city employee, but there's no issue because of the fact that we went out for bids to anybody.
But this is just to put drainage tile in like they do in the fields?
I don't know what the project is.
A little more than that, right?
It's a little more than that, isn't it? Yeah.
It's more of a runoff control, isn't it?
We made it public and
Right.
went through all the processes, so there's no worries
Yeah,
there.
they're right to bid on it just as anybody else was.
All right.
I believe it was Tile, I mean, just for reference to the Tile Pros that also did the work at the wetlands project out there, so I mean, that's not the first time we've awarded a contract to them.
Cool.
Move to approve?
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 10 is a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of property generally located at 1203 East 2nd Street in the city of Webster City, Hamilton County, Iowa. Finally. Zach?
Yeah. So this is the apartment complex that was adjacent or next door to Gridiron, Shady Oaks is what it was called. Yeah, we went to court on it last Monday. The judge awarded us title to it. In order to accept it, though, the city has to approve a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of the property. And so once we do have, I hope you guys would do that so that the city can move ahead with disposing of it, I guess.
And to touch on that too, maybe Daniel, you could speak to this, because we talked a little bit about it earlier today in your office, but maybe inform the community what that would detail if, once we take possession of the property, some options we have for both what we're gonna do with the dwelling and how we're going to possibly hand that off or sell to interested parties.
Well, I think first of all, I recall that town hall meeting back in the spring where everyone this was the topic of conversation for everyone, talking about the condition, and that became as a result of unfortunately the property owner was arrested, and the property became vacant. But we've talked about internally in terms of how to move forward. We've talked about it about one, demolishing the buildings that are there. There's 3 buildings between the 2 in the front that were the motel or the apartment complex, and then you have another building in the back. So we're looking to get bids to see what demolition costs would entail for the city to demolish it, and then look at how to repurpose that property. We're looking at zoning questions because that property is split between 2 different zoning categories, as well as trying to address what would be the best and most beneficial use for the community out there. You know, we have fielded probably a half dozen, if not more, people interested in acquiring the property for a variety of different reasons, some being commercial, some being residential. I think we haven't decided on a single approach or how to do that. You know, one avenue we may look at is to go out and not necessarily solicit bids for the highest bidder, but solicit bids for the best proposal, taking into account what the fair market price would be, and looking at the proposal over the greater amount of financial money that we may get out of just selling it. So that will at least ensure that whatever does go in there would be a compatible use for that area, as well as a beneficial use for the overall community, so that we don't have another property that gets dilapidated over time.
So I'd be against us demolishing anything. I think that could be a part of whatever the proposals are, just my opinion. What I don't wanna see it be is an empty lot that just sits there.
It sounds like we have quite a bit of interest, and some of the just, you know, I'm aware of one, you know, use for it that would not be that, and I personally feel the city should knock it down just for safety concerns. Again, we're talking hypotheticals. Obviously, I think, Zach, you're gonna get the outcome you want out of the agenda item, and then we have some options, but, you know, to go back to what Daniel spoke of earlier, this was a huge safety concern for the community, and now that we have possession of it, as we're trying to get possession of several other properties, I feel we should do what we've done with them in the past, and that's knock it down, make sure it doesn't become a rodent or a vagrant motel, and then we see who's interested in the property.
Are you sure that the structures, the buildings are not salvageable for living? I mean, has anyone been out there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The only reason I ask is last time at the middle school, we talked about a need for housing for 400 additional workers in the area. It seems fairly short-sighted to be knocking down buildings that could potentially be housing some of those people.
I wouldn't house my dog in there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, I'm just...
No, but good, but, no, to your point, you're right, that we're in a need of housing, and if they're in somewhat salvageable shape, we probably shouldn't jump that, but the reason I feel it's important to erase that building in a sense is just because of some of the history and obviously the physical condition it's currently in. And be honest, it's probably gonna cost more to make them livable than it would to just build new at this point. They're that bad, so, but good point.
That's on somebody, that's on a builder's say you've consulted builders and they've went in and said, yeah, in fact, you're
Or-
right, these should be torn down because they're not salvageable.
I believe our building inspector could probably speak to the
There you
condition
go.
of it, but yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I think everyone feels
yeah.
more confident.
sure.
Did you want him to come up, so he does? Oh, can you just come up and give us your name?
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry.
you're right. I should have asked you to come up when you
Yeah, that's
spoke.
okay.
That way Ann's got the,
Chris Anderson.
thanks, Chris. But, yeah, no, I should have had you come up when you first started talking, but you're fine.
I can stay here.
But you, no, but no, it's a good point, but our biggest problem is that we don't wanna see this, you know, half the time when we let buildings like this go back to somebody, it ends up back in the same thing as what we have now.
No, I understand.
And that's what we'd rather not, and we do have some people that have expressed interest in building, other apartments there, other than what is there, so.
Good.
So at the moment, you know, I guess our best option really is to see what, one, we've got to find out how much it's going to cost us to do. So there's many options at the moment for us to look at. So.
Sure. And I've
And it's-
driven
and
by
one
them
of
several times, and I know that from the outside, they don't look that good.
Yeah, and obviously they weren't taken care of inside recently, but, you know, has anyone, I don't think that anyone has actually looked at the physical structure of it or anything, but.
You know, there's a property that just recently came back to the city's control, and that's 601 Woolsey, where they did just that. Someone that had took, or that the city worked with for them to fix up the home and turn it into a decent resident. It was already a residential home, and then they fell through with that. And so that's the trouble we have, is that if we wanted to go out and accept proposals for people that want to turn to residential, it's hard for them to follow through with it, and then we're left a year out with just another building or another dilapidated structure that no one follows through with it. That doesn't mean, like I said, and perhaps that's where the proposal option comes in, because then you can evaluate whomever's submitting that proposal versus what projects or other initiatives they've taken on, to be able to verify if they have the financial capital and the resources to really be successful at that.
Well, it's like I said, I haven't seen the insides of them. I've driven by like everyone else, and it looks like it's in pretty rough shape. But it seems like somebody ought to kind of keep us focused on some of the bigger problems we have. Keeping the town looking pretty is a good idea, but having enough housing for all of the people that we need to put in this city over the course of the next year seems at least worth a thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Just to touch on Logan's point about the safety, I would probably say I've directed the police department probably a handful of times over the last 2 or 3 months just to do spot checks. Sometimes they're just out of just condition of it being by itself, and sometimes it's just out of concerns or comments that are relayed about seeing someone in there, or to the extent that I had an investigator come stop by my office last week and told me that someone had listed that place as their living address through the summer, which we all know was no one living there. But you know, that's part of the reason why we look at demolishing it, because it is a somewhat of an odd structure to be able to police and secure out there, and it is on our insurance rolls now.
Well, the good news is we have options. We have a building that now we control the fate of it, and that's what we fight for a lot of other properties. So all in all, this is a good thing, and of course we'll seek out, you know, public opinion on what should be done. But again, the major step is handled, and I appreciate where it's at.
So for someone who is interested now, they need to contact Carla or yourself, or we need to decide if we're doing this proposal type thing, or what's the next step?
Why don't you give me to the next council meeting to outline
Next
that?
step's probably get quotes on.
Yeah, yeah, because that was the thinking, was to get quotes to see how expensive this process was going to be, because you're very likely going to see that if someone had a proposal to demolish it or try to retain it, they're going to have that cost included as well. And so, but yeah, I mean, we just got this on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. I mean,
I guess I like the idea of whoever proposes that being part of their proposal, tearing it down, and us weighing that on our decision to save us money from doing it. So
right.
Well, we would include that in the cost of the property. So say it cost us $8,000 to tear it down, it would be $8,001 for the property or something like that. So we would recoup our costs in the sale of the property, in a sense. I mean,
There's a couple options to look at.
hypothetically.
We have to still sell it for fair market value.
Right.
We have to approve the acquisition first.
Yeah.
Yes.
To approve.
Okay.
Second.
I didn't do either one.
Matt moved, I second.
Brian second.
Yes.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 11 is a resolution authorising and approving execution of a purchase agreement between the City of Webster City, Iowa and the Shiva Real Estate LLC and Sabosh Sahai Trust and Anil Sahai Family Trust.
Did we skip one? Did we skip one?
No?
That's the right one then.
We can do that one before we do the next one.
Okay, there we go, I'm at the right one now. This is the resolution, the agreements, and we've talked about it. We talked about it a little bit at the town hall meeting last week, we've talked about it in the summer. This revolves around, I guess, our future wastewater needs. If it wants to warm up and come on.
It's snowing out there.
As we've gone through this process of analyzing and assessing our wastewater plants and our current capacity and future needs to accommodate growing industries that both include Vera Blue, Marianne's Custom Meats, Webster City, Marianne Specialty Foods, and Webster City Custom Meats. We've looked at the state of our current wastewater plant. Based on some of the feedback we've gotten back in terms of what the industries expect in terms of growth, we are looking at requiring an expansion of our wastewater plant. Part of the problem we run into is the site of our existing wastewater plant is somewhat landlocked, bordered by the river on one end, which makes it part in the floodplain, and you have residential homes within a 1,000-foot radius, which was a rule that wasn't in place when the plant was originally constructed, and so all that factors kind of contribute to the fact that the existing site is not suitable for an expansion of our wastewater capacity. We started looking based off of that, looking at a feasible site.
It wasn't snowing out there.
We started looking at possible future sites for a wastewater plant. We've narrowed it down to the green shaded area. A couple of reasons why we looked at that was, one, its close proximity to the current city's infrastructure, the proximity to the river to be able to discharge and have the outfall there, as well as the availability of the property being available for potential purchase. And so we'd spoken with the property owner, and we worked out an agreement to acquire 60 acres. That includes this little, I guess, stretch, which would be the future access to the site. The property owner, although we realistically only needed roughly between 20 and 30 acres, depending on what the final plant design would be, the owner didn't want to landlock the corner piece, so we agreed to acquire that piece, and then once we've completed the design portion, we would have to decide what to do with the remaining portion, whether that be to use it for other city departments or even possibly county departments, or possibly more than likely make it available for industrial commercial growth. That'll be determined at a future date. As I mentioned, we've been working with the industries and trying to get information and data in terms of what their current capacities and their future capacity needs are going to be. We included that in the council packet based on the most recent information given by the industries to our engineer. And those vary anywhere from what I believe I mentioned, the memo, anywhere from 12% to 25% of an increase in our wastewater plant. We're still waiting on additional information from Webster City Custom Meats and what they may do, but as we move forward, it doesn't seem to be there seems to be very few options in terms of other than the city needs to start looking at a new site and a new wastewater plant for both our current and immediate future, as well as our future beyond that.
When we discuss, so you say we still have one offer, or one information due, one.
Yeah, we received the information from Honda Industries. We first approached them and asked for information. In the winter, we got some preliminary information back by the middle of the spring. And then we met and got additional information from the industries, and so they've revised their figures, and to try to see what their needs are gonna be realistically to, the cost that's gonna be involved in the wastewater plant. Vera Blue kind of gave us 3 different scenarios based on what they're looking to do from their planning perspective, and so that 12% figure that I mentioned, that's off their lowest figure, but not knowing precisely what their plans are. They've talked about a couple different mechanisms or methods to pre-treat or repurpose some of their water and their processes, but they also have in mind processing sites or additional farms or urban farms in Webster City. So that's kind of up in the air in terms of what they're ultimately going to be discharging to us in our sewer plant.
Then I believe also we had some potential situations where other land could be sold to help offset the cost of this. Where have those gone?
I think, Vera Blue still has an option for what would be this corner piece here that I'm zooming in. They had an option that they were to purchase that from the city. So if that option, if it gets executed, that obviously would bring in additional funds to be able to accommodate that. The funds that were...
When is their due date? When do they have to respond?
I think end of this year, December, January. So...
Well, it sounds like, we're missing 1/3 of the people that potentially would be discharging. We don't have their information. We have nebulous figures, 12 to 25%.
Well, we have
another one, so I think I'd like to see this put off for at least 2 weeks and see if we get any more concrete information coming in. Because we're kind of being asked to buy a pig in a poke, so to speak, and we don't know what the future needs are. Then we got the other offset, is this land gonna sell or is it not gonna sell? There's a lot of questions I think that need to be answered before we commit money.
The only thing I'm waiting on the other industry to reply, and they've indicated they're working through that, and so the only thing that ultimately may happen is that 12% figure is just going to increase based on what they're going to do, unless they remain the same. And they had provided information and figures late spring and early summer in terms of what they're going to be doing, and so they've kind of gone back to reevaluate what they want to do. And when I say what they want to do, that would entail whether they want to add systems or processes to further pre-treat on site, or whether or not they just want to discharge to us and be able to handle that. Some of the questions that were posed was really, what are you going to discharge, and what are your design loads going to be for CBOD, TSS, TCAN, all those things that we would treat for.
So if memory serves me correctly, even without Vera Blue in the mix, we were at capacity just with the current.
Just on nitrogen, right?
Right.
I think there was a couple others. I think it's not only were we nearing capacity, but we also have additional regulations that DNR is expecting to come down the line in the near future that our current plan isn't designed to do. In addition, the wastewater plant assessment that Bolton and me completed, and we had outlined a plan several years ago in terms of when upgrades or what components would need to be upgraded. And so if we do nothing to move in a direction with a new plant, we're still going to be looking at several millions of dollars of investment in the current plant that won't address our capacity or possibly even the new regulations that are coming down the line.
No, and I said this at the town hall, this is a kind of a good problem to have, yet expensive, because this will be affecting everybody. This industry, residential users, everybody over time. This is kind of just the first step, teeing us up, making sure we have land, access to the river, and makes sense for where we need to put it, and some restrictions we have with the DNR and the state for neighboring properties. So I get that. I think what Jim's trying to say, though, is you're a little hesitant, not knowing all the facts.
No, I'm not saying I'm hesitant. I am hesitant Because also when we talked in the spring, I'd asked that we look at the other cities to see if there's a potential, if they had to go into this, upgrading their waste treatment facilities, and I don't know if we've got an answer back or even talked to anybody. You know, we got CAMR because we talked when the engineer was here about several places of going regional on transporting your waste. Did we get any answers? Did we talk to them?
We haven't gotten an answer on that.
Yeah, good
Well, have we
point.
talked to them, or have we?
We have not followed up with them.
Yeah, good point, Jimmy. I remember that is something we talked about.
Yeah, well, I know it's something we talked about. I mean, like I say, we've got several irons in the fire right now. We're sitting here waiting for Mayor Blue to decide if they're gonna do something. And we're gonna make a commitment on expending more money for something that we will maybe need in the future. But I say, let's wait 2 weeks and see what we come up with. I mean, hit on the,
Is 2 weeks gonna change anything?
I don't know,
That's
but I mean, let's
that's
look
the
at it
problem we've got. I mean,
from a pragmatic point of view. We got one of the major users out on the east side of town that we haven't heard back from. I mean, I don't know if they have a suspense date they have to meet, but we're being asked to make a decision without all the data being available for analysis.
I don't have the history in front of me, but there was a plan initially to put us to a point where we were 25% over capacity at this point where we are now.
That's right.
And that's been pushed along to the point where we can't do that anymore. You say it isn't needed, but we're at the point where it is needed. We're gonna have to do something, no matter what.
If we have, yeah, that's what I'm saying, but we do not have all the facts yet to make a good decision. That's what I'm saying. We don't have all the information present to make a decision.
But we have the information present to know that we have to build a plant. The only thing we don't have now is how big the plant has to be.
Well, yeah, we're speculating on that, but there's still, I've got unanswered questions, so I mean, at this time, I'd have to abstain from
So
voting.
based on the data we have now, it looks like we're gonna be required a minimum increase of 12% capacity. So that's just one piece of the requirement. We could be looking at additional regulations that requires us to do more. That would be another reason to have to do it, but I think we have the data already that says we're going to have a different plant. No known size at this point, but I don't think we can meet the future needs without the regulatory changes. That's just a piece of it.
I agree with Councilman McKinney, because, again, the reason this is a good problem to have is because we are growing. And be honest, there's a lot of data we don't have that's hypothetical data coming down the pipe of other industries that may be attracted to Webster City in 3 years. And if we have the capacity for them or not, at that time, could make or break a possible relocation to Webster City of that plant. But to your point, Jim, there are some things that do need followed up on in our conversation, right? Reaching out to
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this 6
area
months
communities, see if they want to, join in, use us as a wastewater provider, things to help bring the cost down to the Webster City residents. And I totally get where you're coming from, but to Councilman McKinney's point, we definitely need this now, and we're without a doubt going to need it in the future if we continue on the path of growth.
So the first step is needing the land to have a place to put it. So that's what this piece of it is. We're not making any decisions on type of plant, size of plant.
It's understood, and like I say, I mean, we had questions several months ago, and we still don't have the answers, so.
When we all got together and discussed, there's not many spots to put this place either. I mean, this was, as far as locations, this was,
I would rather we knew, I mean, I agree with you, I'd rather we knew that for sure that we were getting the money for the land that is there, but, getting a guarantee from them is
Well, I mean,
possible.
put them on the
But,
cut bait.
but I don't think, with the way we've been, with the length of time it's taken to get this far with this project, I don't think 2 weeks is gonna make any difference. In fact, I think we'll be past the end of the year before we get the information back from these, other industries.
Another way to look at it too is we're deciding on a land purchase, and purchasing land is just an asset now. I mean, it's yes, we're paying money for dirt, but that dirt has a value. So we're not necessarily committing ourselves to anything that we can't either sell or change your mind on, or use it for a different use. But it's good to have that option locked in now. So when we do pull the trigger or not, we have the land available to do so.
On those increases that I mentioned, I wanted to point out that that's just for flow. Looking at this figure here, my pointer would work right. So that's 12% for flow. the bigger part, and I think we're dealing with at our current plan, as well as some of these results or information we've received back so far. You know, what we have received so far indicates would be 110% increase in CBOD and 120% in TKN.
TKN was the problem one we had already, wasn't it? That was the biggest problem.
And that's the one that was up before Vero Blue even existed, so.
So, and obviously I know that one of the industries is still going and looking at theirs, but all that's gonna do is either stay the same or further increase those figures.
Yeah, they're not gonna come to us and say 0.
All right. Well, we'll call for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Roll call. Thanks, Ian.
Hawkins,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Talbot,
Not at this time.
Welch.
Yes.
Item 12 is a resolution relating to the financing of a project to be undertaken by the City of Webster City, Iowa, establishing compliance and reimbursement of bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code.
This is what's referred to as a resolution, or a reimbursement resolution, and so we've talked about in the past of how we're gonna pay for this wastewater plant, project. We're looking, or at least at this point, considering pursuing the state revolving loan fund, for financing all or part of this project. Part of us starting to incur some of these major expenses is then by passing this resolution, this aspect of that cost can then be recouped once we complete the whole financing portion of this project. So obviously, as I mentioned, we're not gonna need the full 60 acres, and so the prorated portion will be what we be able to recoup back and include into that financing portion of the project.
Everyone understand
Yeah.
what that's about?
You're looking for a motion and a vote, right? Move to
Correct.
approve.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 13 is a resolution. Item 13 is a resolution authorising and approving execution of an agreement to rescind residential purchase agreement between the City of Webster City, Iowa and Veranda Homes Corporation.
Earlier this summer, the city approved the sale of 3 lots, in Brewer Creek 3, lots 5, 6, and 10 to Veranda Homes, who had intended to construct 3 homes on the lots. They have since they have failed to move forward with their plans to construct those homes, and we've worked out this rescission agreement to undo that agreement, and with the intent that then I think lot 10 was the one that we had 2 bids on, 2 offers for. So we would look to then sell that lot to the individual that was interested at that time.
With no stipulations on building. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we put that stipulation on Veranda.
We told him.
Right.
Yeah,
Even though the other interested party
well-
has no interest in doing that, I just wanna make sure that we're not transferring that expectation to the other interested party.
That was the reason why the council chose Veranda Homes over the other
Yeah.
offer, was because Veranda Homes at least had stated they had intentions to build and construct homes.
No, I'm fully, I remember very vividly that
I
conversation.
know.
Just saying it for the crowd.
Yeah.
And the city was able to obtain, or to retain the earnest money that was put down for this last sale, so.
It wasn't enough, was it?
Huh?
It wasn't enough for the amount of playing around we got.
That's who you're asking.
Yeah. All right. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion
So
approved.
Bruce have been contacted now?
Yes, he's spoken to Carla, and so and of course that agreement is already in place, so he doesn't have to talk to us. So.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying,
So,
yeah.
yeah. 14 is it?
14 15, yep.
Motion to consider extending the residential completion agreement between the City of Webster City and Marty and Nathaniel Parkhill at 1503 First Street.
Morning, gentlemen, tonight.
Good. Been a long time getting to this.
Well,
Well, just to this in the agenda, I was saying. not-
Right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it's correct and part of it's kind of wrong in one sense.
Yeah.
Because the original agreement was a two-part agreement where they wanted the house finished and standing, exterior with heating by November 1st. Right now, he's in the process of getting a home that's gonna be moved onto the property. I guess basically, I don't know what you wanna say, forgive the part where it needed the house setting there was the first part, but the deadline for May 1st, I guess we still believe that that's still functional date, because once the house is moved on there, you got a house that's done. I think the only thing that he needs to add to the house that it doesn't have that he wants is an air conditioner. I mean, it's kind of with the heater, hot water heater, and everything else.
Yeah.
But the package that he handed out is kind of what he's got planned. I know he's got the hole dug out, got all the old footings and foundation out. He's got a contractor that's gonna come in, I don't know, sometime later this week, the way it sounded, and work on putting in any water line and sewer line.
Well, it sounds like you'll end up with more of a house than you were originally looking at.
Well,
Good deal.
yes and no. I mean,
Yes and no.
well, when you start looking at building a house, the bank wanted to go out to contractors to get quotes, to get everything done. And that, he went from wanting something that he thought he could pay here, and it went,
No.
They
Yeah.
originally started with that, they were just gonna be a single bedroom, kind of thought it'd be more worthwhile to make something that I could actually live and grow in. So we looked at that option and then decided it wasn't feasible to completely build from scratch. So I looked at other options as far as moving something in.
Yeah.
Could Daniel, can you give a little background, or maybe even Elise, I don't know, on kind of the history of what's in front of us today and what's got us to this point?
Yeah, I think you have the residential completion agreements in your packet that was done in July of 2016. Basically, you had outlined that the Park Hills had to complete the exterior construction of the home, complete with windows and furnace and the roof by November 1st, and obviously we're November 6th, and that time has come and passed. So with the overall completion to be for the home to be done by May 1st, and so what the Park Hills are asking is an extension to be able to move forward with the project they've outlined in moving that home at 609 Ohio Street to the lot.
1503 First Street, 1503.
1503 3rd Street. First Street. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, obviously, the facts are, they had an agreement with a November 1st deadline that they obviously have not met. They have plans for what could foreseeably be the home moved to the lot. I don't know about your timeline, if that is to occur before end of December or what the timeline is. And I guess the other question that I would have for you to address the council on is in terms of where are you at on that financial piece? I know you have this letter from the bank in terms of the preliminarily qualified, but how far along are you in that process? Because,
They've got a appraisal company that's supposed to be looking between his property now and the house that's sitting at 609 to figure out the appraised value once that house is setting up there. And I guess that's basically, I'm kind of waiting for
The appraisal, the appraisal's out. It's, sounds like up to 10 days to do the appraisal. And that was, I believe, Friday when it got sent out. I haven't heard from the appraisal company yet, so I should be hearing from them shortly. Once the appraisal's done, it sounds like there's a week for some other paperwork or other before the money's actually available. But once the appraisal's done, then we'll know where we're at financially on that area anyways.
so will the movers and the pouring of the foundation, is all that on hold until this appraisal gets done and the bank signs off on that financial piece?
As far as the foundation is kind of on hold until the appraisal's done. But in the meantime, I get the hole dug, and I'm planning on starting on the sewer, is what I'd like to do. That way I've got that, so I'm ready to put the foundation in once the go-ahead is good to go, try to move it on along as fast as possible.
First of all, you know, I appreciate you coming out and speaking tonight. You know, sometimes the question or the party at hand don't show up to intelligently inform us of kind of their plans and
Yep.
next steps. I do have a problem though with the timeline. And correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe these are just dates I'm seeing. A deadline was given on November 1st of this year, but some of these agreements weren't even signed or dated until very late in October.
Yep.
What was the plan, or when did the discussion start to move the home? Did we back out of other building arrangements to go
Yeah.
down this path, and did that slow you down, or is it
Yeah.
just maybe you looked at the calendar like, oh, I better get a house on there or do this little? Can you
I started
explain
off with just the single bedroom that I talked about. That was what I was planning on when we talked to you and we came upon this agreement. Looked at that over the winter a little bit. That's when I made the decision to go to something bigger I could grow in. I looked into that. I had that, all the quotes for that set. Decided it was going to be too much. I didn't want to invest that much into it. So then I looked into just a modular home, and I talked to Elise. I want to say it was July. I don't know if you remember.
It was July.
July. And at that point realized the original one I talked to Jared about, it was just a single story and it sounded like that was all good. When I went and talked to Elise, she told me I needed to have something that was taller than the garage. So I needed to be a 2-story. So
Because you guys got a garage over there.
Yep.
So she suggested looking at the Bowman house. So then I started investigating that a little bit. I spent quite a bit of time trying to get a hold of a mover. Spent quite a bit of phone calls, not returned back, or time waiting for them to get back to me or whatever. And then I finally got back on that. I think my last quote that came in was for air conditioning stuff, and that came in on a Friday, and the information went to the bank that day. That would have been last, or 2 weeks ago, I believe now. Not last week, the week before.
When did you first speak to the bank about financing?
July? Yeah, back when I was looking at yeah, well, actually, I originally talked to them when I was looking at building the bigger house. And then I went in and talked to them more seriously. I mean, everything was set to go to the bank as far as quotes go on the modular one.
No, thank you.
You even had to sign a waiver, because, you know, originally it was like the amount was taller, what do you want to get a loan for?
Mhm.
And since he turned around and it's gonna be less than what he was anticipating to begin with, they had to start stuff over.
Sure.
Because it was less
Yeah.
money.
Sure. Fits in different brackets and amortization schedules, and sure, yeah.
Well, I like what you've been doing, and I give a compliment you folks for talking to Elise. I mean, at least you are talking through the issues and listening to both sides, and I guess that's what I feel good. You know, I've been, drive by there, so you made a lot of progress on getting everything out there. They're getting a lot of scrap out there.
Yep.
Get $200 a ton for that, or? But anyway, no, I see a lot of stuff that's been done on that. I mean, and so you've been talking with Elise. I mean, you feel comfortable? I mean,
You know, we've made a lot of progress since July, and I feel we're moving in the right direction. I feel it's a good fit for this house that Theo needs to take down for it to go in this place, other than just take down yet another property, so.
Yeah, no, you know, that's why I was asking
Yeah.
your judgment, because, I mean, you folks were working with Elise, and so I compliment both of you on that, working this out, and I guess I'd like to see us go forward with what your request is. I mean, it's better than what we're doing right now. I mean, you know, we just talk about bringing housing in, as the gentleman was talking about. We're gonna get a chance to take that. When is that house coming down? I know they're working on their house on the corner, and that was, the fire was this.
Well, originally he wanted to be out of the house in August, September. That's when he wanted to be in his new house. He told us at one point that he was gonna be out by Thanksgiving. Nathan talked to him last Thursday, Friday, and he told him that he's hoping that he can get out of there the week after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of a toss-up, because it's hard to move him when he's still living in it too.
So the project really is contingent
He's
upon,
giving a generator.
so
I just did it there while he
from your
moved.
perspective moving forward, the project is contingent upon the appraisal coming back positive to where you could get the loan, get the financing, correct? And you, I guess my suggestion would be we put it off till the next council meeting, because you should have that answer by then.
Possibly.
So you're suggesting we defer our decision on this until the next council meeting?
To know whether the
They'll bring it back.
financing's there and whether you can proceed forward, because if they come back for some reason and say it's only gonna be 40,000, I don't know how it works when they are moving a building from one place to another and then doing the
Did you-
appraisal.
In your,
Do you want to make a motion to?
If everybody's
finance
comfortable with that,
with-
I would move and wait to hear the answer on the appraisal.
I just wonder if we made a motion to, with, as long as the financing goes through, that we'd accept them.
well, the one thing I think that when I looked over your plan and you made the mention that the foundation will need to sit for as long as the contractor requires. And so, I mean, if we end up with a snowstorm in the next 5 to 10 days, what does that do to your plan? I mean, I think the council's prerogative is just to make sure that, if you can follow through and get the house moved by the end of the year, then I think they're somewhat supportive of that idea. But if Mother Nature has her way and you don't get that done and you're sitting with just the lot being as it is now until the springtime, then I don't think that's what the council has in mind.
I guess that's kind of a toss-up between both things, because you wanted a structure standing that was enclosed but not finished. And then you gave us to May 1st to have a completely finished item. And basically, we plan that May 1st deadline should be able to have the house sitting there completely done.
But there won't be a house on that property.
Pardon me?
The November 1st was to have the structure in
Right,
place, I
right.
think is what you're referring to.
So are you willing to, so basically what we could do is we could double down. We can have both municipal infractions ready to go at May 1st if we don't have both a structure there and a livable dwelling. I don't want to do that though. I don't want to play that game. I'd rather
Well, I mean,
work with you on your plan moving forward and defer, like McKinney mentioned, this until we have actual financing, because if we're hinging our bet here on whether or not financially you're prepared to move forward on this, then everything is out the window anyway, and then you'd have to go back to the drawing board, I'm assuming, if this house isn't going to be able to be moved through your finances. So I would prefer that as well, because if we move forward with the municipal infraction, then I guess you could come back in 2 weeks saying we have financing and we can just throw it out, right? Because you have 30 days to, once you file the municipal infraction, you have 30 days anyway. Am I mistaken? No?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can set the 30-day like we have in the past with the resolution. I mean, but the thing about if the council were to okay, I think we'd have to come back out of the way for a resolution to approve the municipal infraction. But if the council were to approve that municipal infraction, that just sets and gives Zach and me the authority to move forward with the court process to get that going. That doesn't mean that we're gonna find a court date of next week and get that process going. So I think if you wanted to start the municipal infraction, they still have the time to move forward with their plans, and obviously then the arguments for why they haven't fulfilled the agreements isn't made to the council, it's made to the judge at that point, and then they have the discretion to make the determination where to go from there.
The frustrating part to me is, and I don't remember the exact dates or anything, but I know this came to us originally as far as when I was on the council as an agreement you guys signed that you didn't honor. And then we started all over. And when we gave you this date of November and May, I thought, man, that is a lot of time. I really hope to see something happen. And now we're back here doing this again. So it's frustrating to me that, this paper's not worth the ink we write it with, we just come back here and we bring up issues and we start all over again.
Well, I guess I'd like to interject, though. I mean,
I will say before we finish though that I do appreciate that you've been working with Elise and that you've showed us that you're doing some things. It's just really frustrating.
right. I mean, it's been frustrating all along from the get-go, because he was informed that the old house was no good.
it took him 4 years to put an infraction on it, telling us that we had to tear it down, which needed to be done. There was 4 years wasted doing that. And one agreement that we signed, we agreed that we would look at looking into the house. We knew the exterior of the old house wall was completely shot. He cut 4 foot out of the floor, trying to figure out how he's gonna put new rafters for floor joists and everything in. Part of that agreement was we couldn't do anything for hooking up the sewer and water until the house was built, which still is nothing done, I guess, with that part of it. We withstood that part because we knew that we couldn't fix it, because we couldn't fix the house. And I guess that was why I guess we chose to come to you back in July, is they wanted us to fix, going back to the apartments out there, something that was unsafe and unaffordable to put together, and it needed to be put out.
Said you want to put it off for 2 weeks, was it?
What were you gonna say, Jim? Did you have a?
Well, I guess, I mean, this has been, like you say, dragging on for several years, and, the thing I like about it, you started talking to Elise, the city inspector, back in July. And I guess, honestly, seeing the agenda, this first time I've been really, brought up to with the speed on this. And so I guess, the 2 weeks doesn't bother me at all. I like to see where it goes, but what I would like to see, honestly, is Elise, making recommendations to us with the folks from the other departments, Carla and Ken, what do we do? I mean, let's try to create a win-win situation. I mean, I just hate drawing lines in the sand, if you will. And we've got communications now. That's more than we had in the past on a lot of this stuff.
Not better than the past.
And let's be candid about a lot of these people, but if they put infractions out, we don't hear a darn thing from them. Or they don't even pick them up in the mail. At least we're communicating on this process, so.
Can I say that it has been just the two of them working on this project from the very beginning. I mean, this started out as Nathan's dream.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to purchase this property and make this happen. He's done nothing but want to improve on this property and make it his dream, a house for him to live in and hopefully, marry and have a family in, It's been just the two of them working as much and as often as possible on this thing. It's not that they want to see this lot sitting here. I mean, this kid has wanted this done since day one.
Yeah, no, and that's what I said.
Really,
I've seen a lot of-
it's not them stalling. It's them working really hard at this to try to get this done. And it's been very frustrating. It's been very frustrating, and it's been a lot of pressure on family, to be doing this. And he wants it done, probably worse than anybody in the whole town wants it done, and any of you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but what I was saying, you folks have been working with Elise.
Yes, they are trying to
communicating,
follow
that's the
all the
good thing
rules.
about it.
Yes, they are trying to do this, yes.
I'd say we go the 2 weeks and see what happens, but if something comes up in the interim, then communicate back with the city so we at least know. Because a lot of times I don't get the information until I see the city agenda, to be very honest about it. So that's what I would suggest, is you folks work with Elise.
As far as waiting the 2 weeks, we're kind of dead in the water for 2 weeks or can we continue to move on?
No, I would encourage you to continue moving on, because the municipal infraction won't stop you from doing this. It'd just be a fine. You still need to continue pushing the ball forward on this. The 2 weeks is just buying you another 2 weeks before we act on the municipal infraction, right? So we're just deferring this matter for 2 weeks so you can get that appraisal done, so we have that financial piece in mind when we make a decision if we want to act on the municipal infraction or not.
Okay.
But if there's a holdup, I would suggest that you would talk to our inspector.
Yep.
So that she can at least let me on the council know what's going on, the rest of the council too.
And Nathan, is this your mother, right?
Yes.
Did you catch that pressure about getting married and having a kid? Just make sure you heard that.
Yeah.
We'll make a motion.
Might be
Thanks for getting home loan, but I know my middle boy purchased a place last November,
Yes.
and it took him 4 months to work through the bank to get the money.
The appraisal will help. Appraisal will know if you're working within the right amount of money compared compared to the appraiser's opinion, so it'll help and give us more, I guess, weight in our decision. So.
I'd make the motion to table for 2 weeks.
Second.
Next council.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. Item 15 is a resolution establishing and approving the declaration of restrictions and property covenants and conditions for Brewer Creek Estates, 5th edition in Webster City, Iowa.
Yeah, this is for the covenants that we've discussed for Brewer Creek 5 and 6. They have been separated between the two subdivisions. I don't believe there's any significant changes that we made since we last discussed this last week.
Yeah, there's no changes, right? Like it's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah, the only
Split
change is
apart.
that we broke it down into 5th and 6th separate.
We changed the piece that Connie mentioned.
Separating it.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 16 is a resolution establishing and approving the declaration and restrictions and protective covenants and conditions for Brewer Creek Estates, 6th edition.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Section D is reports and recommendations of officers, boards and commissions. Council committee reports.
I just, the Youth Advisory Commission will be meeting November 19th. It's a Sunday at 7 p.m. I will be sure to have maybe Ann reach out to Anastasia about that, if at all possible. And we'll be working with the chamber on their, I forget what they call it, but I want to say like Christmas in the City.
Yep.
Right, December 3rd. And help them with their needs. The Youth Advisory Commission wants to obviously grow that, so they want to help out this year and see what they can do. A lot of other exciting things coming out in the pipeline, but again, if you, when I say you, the rest of council have any ideas for the Youth Advisory Commission, please throw them out there.
Are there any other reports or recommendations? Zach, did you want to, well, it's item E, City Attorney Update Report.
Yeah, so October was a busy month, just a few of the highlights. The city, I have on here the finalizing the water service territory transfer agreement with the county and Xenia. That's also now been approved by the USDA, so that was done after this report was sent to you guys. So that's all done. Now the city will begin providing that water service to them. The rescission agreement, which we talked about with Miranda Homes, has been signed now, and then you guys have approved it, so it'll get recorded. Restricted covenants, we've already talked about, and then the court hearing was last Monday to obtain the property at 1203 East 2nd Street, which we've also talked about already tonight. So.
You're actually getting somewhere for change.
Yeah, get more out, that's what I'm getting.
Alright. Well, I guess, anyone else have anything? So we're going to, item F is to close session, to meet in closed session to evaluate the performance of the city manager, which is necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual's request to close session as provided by Chapter 21.5I of the Code of Iowa. Call for a motion.
Move to go to closed session.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thanks everybody for coming.